Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and a very warm welcome to Friday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Today we're going to change tacks because it's very quiet in the DC Universe today. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the secrets of the success of Smallville. Smallville is a very, very interesting television show. I mean, why did it last for 10 years? What are the secrets to the success of this show? Now, when Smallville was announced, there'd already been some faulted attempts to actually launch a Superman movie series via Tim Burton and other directors, and even a Justice League movie that never worked out. The last thing I wanted when Smallville was announced was a Superboy TV show. That's how they announced it, a young Superman. None of us knew what we was going to get. So one day I was just piano hopping. I had a hangover after a really late, heavy Saturday night out, and I'm on E4 or Channel 4 or whatever. I think it was T4, by the way, which basically stands for Teen 4, which was part of Channel 4. If you live in the UK, you know what I'm talking about. And on the little info bar, it comes up Smallville, and I said, oh my God, Smallville? That's where Superman grew up. Surely it's got to be about the same place. So I see this bald guy, who obviously was Michael Rosenbaum. I didn't know that at the time. I thought, please be Lex Luthor, please be Lex Luthor. It's Lex Luthor. I don't think I watched Smallville from the very beginning. This must have been maybe episode 2 or something. So I watched it, and I all of a sudden I was just transfixed on this show. The early years of Smallville, certainly the first season, had a lot of charm. So from not wanting this series, I was obsessed with this series, and I remember it used to air about 6:10 on Channel 4, I think every Tuesday. Now, I used to be senior sales at a toy shop called Toyster. I used to run, literally run. I couldn't be able to get a bus. I used to run just to get home by that time. Obviously, I'd record it, but I wanted to watch it. And I was just so intrigued by this show, Smallville, and what it was attempting to do. I had questions. Is this set in the 21st century? Is this set in the 60s, like in Superman the movie, because of the time frame of when that movie was made? But it was set in the present day, as we saw Chloe, a very interesting character, using computers. So it was set in the modern day. The premise of Smallville was very, very interesting in terms of this meteor shower that's like scattered kryptonite all over Smallville and makes human beings into mutants. So this had a very Beverly Hills 90210, obviously with sci-fi elements to it, but it had a little bit of a Roswell, if you've ever seen the Roswell series. So what our Miles were trying to do here was try and, create the kind of, I suppose, pretend that this was a teen drama. They were trying to create this teen drama vibe to suck in young people, and it worked. Of course, this was never going to be a 90210. It was never going to be that type of show. By season 2, we started delving into the origins of Clark, his Kryptonian origins. We were introduced into the Kawatche Caves, a genius concept by our Miles, because at that time they couldn't use the fortress. At this point, we understood that this wasn't going to be a teen Superman show, but they were going to tell the full character-driven story of, Clark Kent's journey to becoming Superman, and Lex Luthor's journey, character-driven journey into becoming Lex Luthor, and how that would actually look like. This was a very intelligent, interesting, plotted together story about Superman and Lex Luthor. For 7 seasons, this lasted before the final 3 seasons kind of had Clark Kent working in Metropolis in the Daily Planet with Lois Lane, but not yet being Superman. Smallville, the way you put TV shows and entertainment together has changed. you know, the premises have changed, because back then it was about entertainment. It was about looking at the screen and vanishing into another world. Today it's about keeping us in this world and using real themes all the time. So we're so dizzy from the propaganda that's being spread and just looking constantly at the real world. Smallville was a fantasy drama using Superman to launch it. And it was a very, very kind of interesting premise, but it asked deep questions, because every character had a soft center. A soft center for a storyteller is a place where the audience, the consumer, can get to know and like their characters. So Clark's soft center was in terms of him resisting what we were calling his destiny of being Superman. He wants to be an ordinary human being. That's what he's striving for, that's what he's fighting for, and he certainly is not looking to become a superhero. And Lex Luthor is trying to fight his destiny, the devil inside him, and the devil sitting on his shoulder from the day he was born, his father, Lionel Luthor. No comics or anyone had ever depicted Lex Luthor's father before. In fact, it was only Tom Mankiewicz, who wrote the script and screenplay for Superman the movie, who ever mentioned Lex Luthor's father. So this was very original, and what this did was it helped mold what Lex would become, and it gave Lex something and someone to fight. Very refreshingly, Lex Luthor and Clark Kent in the early years of Smallville were best friends. Why was this so huge and why was this so powerful? This concept is what really drove me to the show. You know they're going to be enemies. In the Superman era, when Clark becomes Superman, these guys will become enemies. But how will they become enemies, and how they did become enemies is very different to the origin material and the comic books. Now, what's interesting about Smallville proves if you do something well, you can do a retelling of an iconic story and make slight changes from the origins and nobody complains. Now, obviously there were complaints from some, but mostly people like me who had loved who loved Superman all their lives were embracing these changes to the mythos of Superman via Smallville. I always call Smallville the Bible of Superman, because it's really like, just getting a front row seat into Superman's and Lex Luthor's early years. Smallville was also very good with introducing some original characters and mixing them up with the iconic characters from the comics. One character was Chloe Sullivan, played by Allison Mack. Now, originally, Allison Mack's character, Chloe Sullivan, was going to be played by an Asian actor. And when Allison went in there and auditioned, she obviously won, hands down. Allison is probably one of the best actors I've ever seen, especially on television. I mean, later on today, I'm going to be doing a Doctor Who video talking about the one-season spin-off written by author Patrick Ness, Class, and looking at the mistake of stereotyping teenagers in the wrong way. Smallville got it right. Now, what makes this a greater achievement is that all the actors were older than teenagers, but they were able to elicit the environment of these guys and girls being teenagers and you identifying with them because of that. Now, I was 28 when Smallville first aired in the UK, so I was way beyond my teens, but I still identified with these characters. And you do, people say it's hard to identify with Clark Kent and Superman, but in Smallville, you absolutely identify with Clark because it's like a teenage angst story. So he's going through his teenage years, he's going through his own puberty, which is facing each individual power. He has to deal with getting X-ray vision for the first time. The X-ray episode is fantastic. Even the Super Sneeze episode is a lot of fun. So basically, it's a big challenge for Clark and his adopted parents, Martha and Jonathan, played expertly by Annette O'Toole and John Schneider. These, even them, were veterans of the industry, and they were very important. Having John Glover, Annette O'Toole and John Schneider there was so important. As I say, that veterans of the industry, and they did a great job. John Schneider, I think, is the best Jonathan Kent I've ever seen on any screen, either the silver screen or the big screen. And I think he was absolutely fantastic because John really takes that seriously. As a person, I've seen him interviewed. He loves the fact that people saw him as their TV dad. And Annette O'Toole has always been a great performer. And, you know, she's very good at performing that warmth, what it takes to be a warm mother. And she was a very traditional mother on Smallville as well. But we found out back in the day she was well educated and she could have become a businesswoman, even working with Lionel Luthor at Luthor Corp during season 2, which made the character, you know, shows that she's not just a homemaker. Not that there's anything wrong with just being a homemaker, but obviously a lot of people want to be more than homemakers, whether they're men, women, or whatever. So that was great as well. You had a lot of characters in Smallville. Now, something I'll be talking about in my Doctor Who class video later is how a lot of the characters didn't work on that show, because you can tell they're trying to force them onto you. Now, with Smallville, I think the only character that kind of fell off and didn't work was Pete, because Pete wasn't there for the right reasons. Pete Ross is a great character in the comics. I think Sam Jones III did a great job, but the writers were going through the motions with him for reasons I don't need to go into here. But it is about tokenization. Of course it is. That's why he was there. And that's a shame, because they could have really made him into a great character. But he was a studio ad. That's the problem. But the rest of the characters, they were very successful with. You know, in terms of, obviously, Clark, Chloe, Lana, you know, all really successful characters. Lex, Lionel, Martha and Jonathan all worked. And they were all very, you know, they were very well expertly put together. It's the second season of Smallville that made Smallville the success it became. Season 2 is the reason it lasted for 10 seasons, because instead of keeping Smallville in one place, it kept on moving and telling an actual story. A lot of people don't like the Meteor Freak stories in season 1, but you needed that to kind of forge a show going forward. That was the foundations of the show. And I understand why people didn't like it, because it's kind of the same thing every episode. But as I say, it really worked to get those foundations and show what Smallville was all about. But as the second and third and fourth seasons came along, fifth, sixth and beyond, every season you saw the show become something different and something else. And it was a new challenge for Clark and Lex in their journeys of becoming hero and villain. And I think it was expertly put together. It was a lot of fun to watch Smallville. And if you were a Superman fan and you knew what was going to happen, it was very exciting. But also, if you'd never picked up a Superman comic before or watched a Superman movie, you were watching this and you were thinking, what's going to happen to Clark Kent in the future? And then someone tells some novice viewer, he's going to be Superman one day. Oh my God, well, I've heard of Superman. That's interesting. What about this Lex dude? He's destined to be his enemy. Wow, how is that going to work out? This is really exciting. Smallville excited people. Smallville made new Superman fans, and it made old Superman fans very happy. And it really is, in the modern era, the most successful live-action telling of DC and the Superman myth. That can't be contested by anyone. It was something special and unique. It's probably something that will never ever happen again, because the people making it really were trying to tell a story, a unique story that made sense. And these characters were actually on a journey. The female characters were strong, without saying, we're strong women, everyone, look at us. No, you're not strong because you say you're strong. And if you're a woman or a man you still need to be liked by the audience. Just because you're a strong character doesn't mean you can't have weaknesses. It doesn't mean you can't be afraid. Only stupid people are not afraid. And this, my friends, was the secret to Smallville's success. This has been the DC Universe Daily here on Movies TV Mad, here with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wife. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection, and I'll see you again in the next video. Until I see you again, goodbye, au revoir, auf Wiedersehen.